Today we've got down here Robyn Fralick, head coach at Bowling Green State for the women's basketball team.
Woo! Go,
Robyn
go.
has been at Bowling Green a couple of years now, and we'll have her go through kind of her history. But just a few of the highlights that I've got written down. She was a heck of a high school player, heck of a college player at Davidson. She went to Okemos High School in Michigan. She was an assistant coach, and you can correct me at any time, Robyn, assistant coach at Ashland for a bit at Western Michigan. Ended up being the head coach at Ashland, winning a national championship down there. Her team, in her head coaching stint at Ashland, she was, correct me, 102-3. Is that correct?
104.
104 and
can't forget those two.
in 3 years. So an incredible stat there as a coach. I mean, and we'll talk a little bit about that and how you sort of sustain that kind of success. Like I said, won a national championship, led the entire country, and maybe set a record, I believe, in points scored in a year. So from a pace standpoint and a scoring standpoint, that's also an unbelievable stat. Like I said, you've been at Bowling Green a couple of years. And now you're sort of building that program from the bottom up now that you're at the bottom. But we'll talk a little bit too about how do you do that coming off such success as a head coach at the Division II level, then moving up to the Division I and sort of building that from scratch. So if you want to add to any of that, and just give us a little bit of the history of that and how you ended up where you ended up and what you're doing now.
Hey, before you start, how young are you? I mean, this is crazy. You've done all this. Some people coach for 100 years and don't win 100 games. I mean, how young are you right now, Robyn?
How young? I like that. I like that framework. I'm 38 years old. So yeah.
And you're married and you have two little ones, right?
Yes, we do. Yes. So I have a 3 and a 6-year-old, and I apologize in advance for the quarantine life. There might be some background noise or some unexpected sounds that emerge. And then my husband actually
you don't have to apologize.
Yeah. Just in case anyone's
wondering. He was an assistant. He kind of assistant. Was he your assistant coach there too as well, or?
Yes. So Baxter as at Ashland University for 10 years and 7 as an assistant. And when I got to Ashland, he was an assistant on the men's side. So that's how we met. We actually met at center court. I mean, he proposed to me at center court of Kate's gym at Ashland University. So that was really neat. And as we had kids, it was hard for us to both be in those roles. And as I took over the head coaching job, so then he joined our staff as a volunteer assistant. So we got to coach together for 3 seasons when I was the head coach at Ashland.
That's fun. Now, is he staying at home with the kids now, or does he coach somewhere, or what's he doing now?
Yeah, well, God bless him. Right now, he's our virtual teacher. He's got the kids every day, and he's leading them through school and lunchtime. And he's actually the PE teacher at their school. So he also has a teaching certificate. He had been an intervention teacher. Now he's a PE teacher. And he also, he started his own LLC, his own business, and he does basketball skill instruction. So that part he's loved because he loves to be on the court. But he's made a lot of sacrifices in this journey together. But I love that we share basketball so much.
Yeah.
I think his dad coached my nephew at Troy, Robyn.
That sounds right. Yeah, my father-in-law's been a high school varsity boys coach for, I'm going to get the number wrong, but it's probably been around 40 years. And he's still the varsity boys coach at Troy.
Yeah.
And he coached Tim, too, and his brother.
Let's go back.
Yeah.
He froze up, I think.
Yeah.
There you go.
Where'd Steve go?
So how do you win 104 games?
There you go.
Oh, gosh. Some things that stand out about that group, that time frame was.
Are you there?
Are you back? We're good? I think we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that group, those 3 seasons, we had great players, you know, who were just as equally or better great people. And I think we all know that when you get a match, when you have great humans who are also great basketball players, that's a formula for a coach to have a lot of success. And we had a really, really strong culture. You know, I felt like our huddle was really tight. Things that were important remained important throughout the season. We had a system, a style of play that I thought was really simple. So they weren't thinking all the time, but they were able to play. You know, they were able to really just play and trust their instincts. And it was the way we practiced, and it was the way we played every day. So I just feel like all those factors came together. We had great talent mixed with great humans.
Now, I kind of think you were at an advantage because as an assistant, you were doing the recruiting of a lot of those girls prior to taking over the head coaching job. So you kind of knew what you had when you went into as a head coach and knew that you could have a little bit of that success, correct?
Yeah, you know, I had been part of the program for so long. So the recruiting of the players, I had been, you know, that had been a big piece of it. And I had been coaching there. And at the Division II level, there was when I was the assistant, there was Coach Ramsey and me. We had one full-time and a GA. So you get a ton of responsibility. I think one of the best places to learn as a young coach is at the Division II level, because you get forced to have your hand in everything, you know, practice planning, scouting, recruiting. You know, you're sort of forced to really figure a lot of things out. And Coach Ramsey was really great at allowing that and giving me a lot of responsibility. So that transition was, there was a little more fluidity to it. We had a really good team returning. I had been there, you know, there was some really good built-in pieces that allowed us to have success right away. But what's cool is, you know, one thing for me is our first year we went 31-2, and which was great. We had a great season, but I just felt like we hadn't maximized our group. And so one of the things I always challenge is, as a coach, right, we always can get better. Like you can always find ways to put your kids in better spots. You can always find ways to create better leaders, right? There's this sort of never-ending pursuit that we're in. And that second year we started pressing. That was when we hadn't done that. We just decided, hey, I think we can be better. Like, I feel like the players we have, we can put them in better spots. And we started pressing, and that was the year we went undefeated and won the national championship. So it was a good lesson for me. Like, just because something's working doesn't mean it's always the best. And that really challenged me, and it was a good framework for me too, to put my own stamp on the program as the leader.
When you were when you set that scoring record as a team, were you running like the Grinnell system type thing, where you're just pushing the ball and getting shots up and full court pressing?
We weren't doing the Grinnell system. You know, it's interesting because I've been asked a lot about it, and we just sort of kept evolving it from what we knew. We didn't like take somebody else's, you know, we just sort of took our team and kept making tweaks on what we thought would be effective. But we just pressured, you know, so we pressured for 40 minutes, and it was a man-to-man press, and we trapped from the backside. I had a really, really good four player who was long and mobile. And we let them loose. You know, we worked a ton on just trapping and rotating. We didn't worry about matchups. We just worried about getting matched up and grabbing the first rebound. What we found is we got a lot of people to play out of system. You know, we didn't spend much time at all on other people's stuff because we knew they weren't going to run their stuff. That we sort of set the tone for the way the game was going to be played. And we just sort of kept making tweaks. I mean, other teams made good adjustments as we went on too, about how to break it or who to flash or flashing multiple people. But those were the things that we would continue to evolve. But the pace came from, you know, I think if you want to be an offensive team with pace, your defense has to match it. You know, there can't be a mismatch in pace. It's a little different at the college level because of the shot clock sort of continue to create that. But we streamlined our pace. So we forced 25 turnovers a game. So we scored a bunch of points off turnovers, but every conversion, made or missed shot or turnover, we were running. And we played out of a high-low motion, so there wasn't much thinking. They weren't looking over for a play call. We just really focused on teaching them how to play.
And I didn't mean to get into X's and O's.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's good. You know what? It's all good. When you go, so you're winning all these games over at Ashland, and then you get hired to become the head coach at Bowling Green, and now you're going from Division II to Division I, and the recruiting is a little different. It's similar, but it's different. And you now have got to create a culture, or, you know, it's like, it's not just a plug and play where you take whatever you were doing over at Ashland and plug it in over there, because the athletes are different, the personalities, the characteristics are different. What did you do? Tell us, you know.
Yeah.
And you're still doing it. I know you're still doing it, because you were 9-21, I think, your first season, and that's not going to be good enough for you. I know that.
Yeah.
So how do you take that and get the culture to where you want it to be?
Yeah, that's a great point. So when you take over a new team, you take over, you know, it's the team that's there. So very different than when I was at Ashland, where I'd been part of all of that recruiting and those kids who were there and who were coming. And I took over a team that wasn't going to put them in a position to be most successful. I didn't feel us pressing it didn't fit our personnel. We are evolving towards that. You know, with recruiting, you get to evolve towards the style that you want. So, you know, looking back, I mean, I hope in a few years I can learn some more from it. But, you know, we tried to put them in more positions to be successful rather than force a system onto the group. I don't know, you know, when I've talked to a lot of coaches about when they take over a building program or they take over a new team, there's usually two philosophies. Either you try to adjust to who you have and put them in spots to be successful, or you just do your system until it gets better and, you know, personnel can match it. I don't know what's the right answer. I didn't feel like that was the right answer for us, but, you know, offensively, we did a little bit more of what we're going to do moving forward. Defensively, my hope and plan is for us to be able to play much more aggressive defensively and be able to stick with the system. We've been pretty scout specific defensively recently, and I want to be able to move in towards being more systematic with pressure.
Is there a theme like written on a sign in your locker room wall or anything that says, you know, whatever that is? I don't know what that would be for you.
Yeah.
You know, like we had smart, fast, physical, fundamental football players to do whatever it takes to win and leave no doubt. That sounds like a lot, and it is, and it's a little bit long, but every single kid on the team knew that, and that's how they all got graded for every single performance. Were you smart? Were you fast? Were you fundamental? Did you do whatever it took to win? Did you ever leave any doubt? The way you practiced, the way you played, the way you went to school, the way you know, that was something that we did. I'm just curious, is there something that you have up on your wall or something that you just say to these girls all the time, over and over and over?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so something that we rally around every day is our core values. All the coaches have them in their offices. Every kid has them in their locker. We have them up above big in our locker room too. And we have 5 core values in our program. They're be a great teammate, manners matter, trust, toughness, and commitment. And we talk about them every single day. So we talk about them every day at practice. So one of the things I believe in the 2 seasons since I've been here that has been one of the most dramatic changes that, you know, we know because we're behind the scenes every day is our core values have really driven our culture. You know, there's been a really good shift in that and rallying around our core values. And there's no fast way to that. I think it's just constantly reinforcing them, constantly keeping them as high level expectations. So those are what we rally around. We do have on our door a sign that says every time you leave the locker room, it says be an every possession player. So that's something that we really hammer in is being every possession player, the consistency that goes in to doing something well. That has been a big theme in our first 2 years is just hammering at consistency and, you know, sticking with things. Like the world, you know, we live in a world of microwaves and Google and everything's fast and instantaneous. And the reality is when you're building we've got answers right at the snap of our fingers. And the reality is when you're building a program, things that are really good aren't fast. So we've been able to sort of sit in that as a staff and know, like, we've really honed in on our culture. We've really honed in on our recruiting. We've really honed in on developing relationships, and we feel like we've made a lot of really good work in those things.
Is that something, Robyn, that was developed sort of over time, or is that something you took from your college days or at Ashland, or did it kind of just happen? That set of core values, how did you define those as you became a head coach?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was at Ashland, Coach Ramsey, she always had a board, her core value board, and it was her vision board, and that she had a lot of parts of that vision, and so we had always, I had learned under her that, you know, she didn't have rules. She just had, everything came back to the vision of the program, right? Everything fit under this vision, and if we got off track, we could go back to the vision and how does this fit and how do we get on track. So I had learned from her that. Now, one thing, my first year as head coach at Ashland, I had kept that because I thought, well, this is part of the program and it's important. But my second year, I decided, I was like, you know what, these are really important to Coach Ramsey and these really, really fit her, that this isn't totally me. So that's the year I decided, you know what, I'm going to create my own core values and things that I really value and the way that I'm going to have our program look. So are they that different? Probably not, but I needed to take ownership in that with the team and for myself. So that's how they came about. And it wasn't hard for me to pick them. It was pretty quick. I just, you know, when you've been coaching a while and you know things that you really care about, and then you just keep emphasizing them every day.
Yeah, it's like raising your own kids, right? We have 4. My wife and I have 4, and manners matter. I love when you said that, because manners do matter, and it's the way that you treat your teammates, the way you treat your coaches, it's the way you treat everybody else in the school, and everywhere you go. The guy who drives the bus, it doesn't matter. Whoever's in the hotel, manners matter, and it's the way you become what you do sometimes is what you do all the time.
Yeah.
And so when those kids act a certain way to the people in the hotel, but act a certain way to you, that's 2 different kind of kids. So when they act that same way all the time, that's when you can get that consistent coaching and they start to really buy in and understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's really cool. So you said you had some core values over at Ashland, and then when you took over, then you changed them a little bit. What were they, and what did you change that made it more you?
Mm-hmm. Well, Coach Ramsey's was more of we had like a vision board. So there were a lot of words in it. I can't remember all of them right now, but I remember commitment was in the middle, and passion, and there was a lot of words. So it was a vision board, I'd say, more than, you know, these kind of bullet point core values, which was great. I mean, I loved that we always went back to that. I just feel like that was, we always said as a staff too, like everything we do, we need to be able to evaluate ourselves on, are we doing these things? Are our kids doing these things? So that framework was very helpful for me. But for me, I think more like, the concise, the bullet points, and then incorporating them every day before practice, every day in our huddle. We talk about them. So Monday is, you know, great teammate, and everybody in our huddle recognizes either, you know, whether that's happening in basketball or off the court. So I didn't want them just to be in our office. Like they needed to be alive. They needed to have context, and incorporating that into our everyday huddle is something I made a transition into. And those are things I've really liked.
Explain, what's your everyday huddle? Tell me and Andy, what's your everyday huddle? What's it look like? Is it something you do before practice? Is it something that you do? Obviously it's a teaching time, it sounds like.
Yeah, so we do our warm-up. Our kids go through their warm-up series, and then we huddle every day. Even on game day and at shoot-arounds, we huddle, and we go through our core values. So, you know, all 5 of them, and then we just keep rotating them. So we would all huddle up, and let's say it's a great teammate. We're all going around and acknowledging that, whether it's somebody else on our team or somebody in our life. So it's just a great way. I know as a coach too, it's a great way to identify behaviors you want to see reinforced, right? It's a great way for them to know about you outside of basketball too, because I mean, great teammate, my husband Tim gets those shout outs a good amount. I was out recruiting, I was gone all night, he got the kids, he made dinner, he did laundry, he had them to school, so I want them recognizing it everywhere, not just on the court. Like, how is this going to impact your life now? And how is this going to impact your life later? How are we going to carry these values? And what I love is when you see these core values become alive in your program, the huddle gets tighter, the culture gets stronger, and they leave better. They really do leave better people. And so, when those things happen as a coach, that's good stuff.
Let me ask a sort of related.
That is good stuff. Culture beats strategy.
Absolutely, every time. From a leadership standpoint, I mean, and that does a lot to sort of develop a leader on your team, or leaders. Everybody's a leader in that case when they're sticking to those core values. What do you think about whether leaders, do you choose them or create them?
Both. I mean, I've definitely, from my experience, some kids obviously have much more leadership ability, without the training piece, but I think it's both. And it's interesting you bring that up, because one of the things my staff and I have really evaluated from this past season is we need to do a better job in our leadership development with our captains and with our young kids, even if they're not a captain at that time, that they're ready for that next role. So actually this summer we're going to do a leadership academy with our kids, and moving forward with our captains, we're going to do ongoing training with them, because just because you're in that role doesn't mean you know what to do. It doesn't mean you have the grasp on what that takes. So that's an area I know we got to develop.
Well, and I know from my experience too, sometimes you assume that certain kids sort of have that ability, and you wrongly assume it. Either they don't have the tools to sort of get it done, or they just don't know what to do, or they don't want to offend anybody on the team. But I've had teams where, I thought a kid would really take the reins and lead a team and do what they're supposed to do because he was a 3-year varsity player, but then they sort of wouldn't assume that role because they were afraid of who knows what, or they just didn't have the tools to get it done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And
so when I come to your leadership academy, this summer, what are you going to teach me? What's one of the first things you're going to teach me when I walk in that door and I'm like, Coach, I'm here?
Well, I think the first thing to any effective leader is you do what you say you're going to do. So that's step one, right? Before you can hold people accountable and have high standards, you follow through, you do what you say you're going to do. So that's where we would start, following through on commitments. With leadership, the base level is respect, because you do what you say you're going to do, right? So you have to start there, and then the accountability piece of holding other people accountable with you, or bringing people along, or raising levels, right? But you got to be accountable first, right? That's got to be step one. And oftentimes kids think being a leader is telling everyone what to do. Well, that's not very helpful or powerful when you're not doing what you're supposed to do. So that's where we would start.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I always say. If you want to change the team, you got to change yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
So it's we're getting down on time, but we just love having you on the show. We're going to call you as the season. Hopefully we have a season this year, but we're going to get to you, because we want to see all this core values and leadership principles go into action, and we're going to be cheering for Bowling Green. This is going to be fun for us to follow you and your team this year. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I hit up Joel for updates as the season goes on, because I'm running from game to game. And he's, I worked with him at a bunch of camps, and you got just from that standpoint, that hire of him, and I'm not tooting his horn, he's just a great guy and a great person to have around, I feel like. And maybe real quick, talk about that, surrounding yourself as a coach with people that are going to bring the integrity, that are going to bring, what you value to your team, and how that helps sort of support what you're doing.
Yeah. Coach Weimer, Joel is, I love to share that he's the exact kind of guy I'd want my daughter growing up around as a coach. You know, he is so, he is such a good person and he is so thoughtful. So yeah, when hiring a staff, you know, you win with people. There's no secrets around that. You hear that whatever organization you're in, you win with good people. And for us, I feel like we assembled a group that they believe in the core values. You know, those things matter to them. They're important to them. I think when you're doing it right, it changes you too. Like you get better every time, you know, that you get closer to those values. So I've loved that. Our staff has been, I feel like it's been a huge win for us in our 2 years here. And I think we just keep getting better because we're getting more time together. But they are people I trust very, very deeply. And when you're taking over a program, that there is nothing more important than that.
Well, Robyn, I really appreciate your time. I know both of us do, and thank you. I hope we can get you on again as you continue to have success down at Bowling Green. I really, really enjoyed talking to you, and as I'm sure Steve did.
Oh my gosh! Thanks so much for having me, guys. I loved our time.
I wish I wasn't so far away. I'd come watch you play. Maybe I'll get up there and watch you play. I love watching great coaches do what they do. I love it. So you're one of them. I don't think we've interviewed. I know we haven't interviewed anybody that's won more games than you. So keep rolling.